Hello, innovators. I'm Todd Wyan, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Great Tech Group. You're invited to join our conversation to model the future of construction innovation and the digital transformation of this great industry. My guest today is Lauren Kinslow. She is a quality engineer at Titan America, where she evaluates and tests new materials to assess performance and ensure quality standards. She holds a degree in chemical engineering from the Virginia Tech College of Engineering and is committed to continuous learning and professional development. Lauren maintains multiple industry certifications, including ACI Concrete Strength and Aggregate Testing Technician and NRMCA Certified Concrete Technologist Level 1 and 2. She's currently a member of the Virginia Ready Mixed Concrete Association's Concrete Leadership Program and is set to graduate in May 2026. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to the conversation. So how I always like to begin is, how'd you get into the industry? What sparked your interest for construction?
I needed a job, essentially. I was
That's a good
graduating.
reason.
Yeah, I was graduating college and was just applying to any of the jobs I found. And then one day I got a call from Titan asking me to come in for an interview. And when I went in, I knew nothing about the concrete industry. One of the first questions they asked me during my interview was, "Do you know the difference between concrete and cement?" And I said, "No, I thought they were different words for the same thing." But apparently the rest of the interview went well because I got the job.
There you go. Nice. So once you got into the industry, what kind of gripped you to be like, okay, I can do a career here?
Yeah. Once I started learning about like all of it, it was just so interesting. Like I really liked the science behind like how it all works. Obviously, like you said, I have a degree in chemical engineering, so just the chemistry behind how the concrete reacts and all that just interested me so much, and it just continued. Everything I learned about it just continued from there.
Yeah. Interesting. Anything surprise you about coming into the space that you weren't necessarily expecting?
I didn't. I guess when I first started, I didn't realize how much science was behind it. You know, when you
Mm.
think about concrete, you're just like, oh, you mix a couple things together and you pour it out a truck. But yeah, there's just so much uh, design going into it that you don't even think about.
Yeah. Are there certain misconceptions that you think people have then with concrete?
Yeah, I think like it's kind of thing like they just don't know the detail that goes into all this. People think it's a very simple industry, simple thing to make, but it's a lot of hard work and planning goes into all of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're part of the VRMCA Concrete Leadership
Yes.
Program, and you're a bit of a trendsetter from what I hear. You're the youngest to ever go through the program and the only woman in your cohort right now. What's that mean to you?
I mean, I'm really proud of myself for making it into that class and finding my footing in it all.
Hmm.
When I was first applying to it, I was definitely nervous. I wasn't quite sure if I was qualified, I guess, to join it. But once I got there, I've more learned about the program. And once I met everyone else, I was like, yeah, I belong here. I can totally do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are there certain specific skills or insights that you've gained so far being part of the program?
Yeah, the program is really great. You get to meet people from uh, other parts of the concrete industry, from other companies that you normally wouldn't get to interact with. There are sales representatives and plant managers and area managers, and then a couple quality people all in my cohort. And so I get to hear about how different companies do things. And because I would learn about these things about how my company does all this stuff, and then I'd hear the other of the CLP class say it, and then I was like, oh, so there are different ways to do it. It helped me get a better understanding of the industry as a whole.
Yeah. How has that kind of shaped or uh, influenced how you go about your day to day?
Definitely a lot. Yeah, some of the things that they've taught us during this program. They've helped teach us like leadership skills and better ways to connect with your coworkers and all, and that has definitely helped me because I'm one of two women in the entire building. So, I do sometimes have trouble connecting with people there, but this program has helped me, learn how to, reach out to people that I don't have as much in common with and find ways to connect with them. So it's been great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned only two women in the building. What's it been like starting out in a space that women are still very much underrepresented in the construction industry? What's that been like coming into the industry?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, everyone at my company is super welcoming and happy for me to be there. But there are, like little things that like they are not used to seeing a woman doing some of these things. When I was first starting my job, my job involves a lot of like physical labor. I have to carry like 30, 40 pound buckets around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the other guys at the office, they'd see me doing that and they'd come over and offer me a hand and help me and say, you know, if you need any help with anything, please let us know. This looks really difficult. We want to help you. I was like, yeah, of course. If I need help, I'll ask you. And then like a week later, I'd be doing my work and they'd come over without me prompting again and start helping me and all and say, if you need help, please ask. I was like, yeah, if I need help, I'll ask, It's just, they were coming from a good place, but they also didn't quite seem to believe that I could do my job sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But, as time has gone on, they have trusted me more to handle myself. And, there are times where I have had to ask for help because, I can't lift super heavy things. So sometimes I do need, an extra set of hands for some things. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a learning curve for everyone, but it has been really great just seeing how welcoming everyone is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome and encouraging from your perspective. What impact does it have to have women represented in these leadership programs?
I think it's really important to see more women in leadership roles and getting more women involved in the leadership programs. Because that's how you get more women to enter the industry to begin with. If you
Mm-hmm.
women, get a job in this industry and then don't see any other women in higher up roles, they don't think that they'll have a future there. So they won't want to continue. So, getting more women in the industry up in more leadership positions will help influence diversity as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. How does the industry conversation need to shift and change to either be more welcoming to women and diversity, or to just get the message across that it already is in and maybe debunk some misconceptions?
Yeah. I think what a lot of people think about the concrete industry and all is that it's you have to there's a lot of physical labor involved and you have to be very strong to do any work in here. And sure, there are some roles that you need to do physical labor for, but there are a lot of other roles that you don't have to lift anything to still be involved in the production of concrete. You could design it. You could you could be sales. You could be in the dispatch, coordinating everything that like where the concrete's being delivered and all that. So I think just informing people about all the different roles that there are will help get more women involved.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point that you bring up, because it's something that we talk a lot about on the podcast, is that there's so much opportunity and kind of career paths and trajectories in the construction industry that I think it's missed a lot, especially by people outside of construction, that they don't see that there's, you can start in the field, then go into the back office, be a designer, go back out, be superintendent, whatever. There's so many different paths that you can take, and it's kind of like the sky's the limit, and that kind of complicates the narrative, because it can be anything that you want, which is there's a lot of cool flexibility kind of baked into the industry.
Yeah, you don't know how big the industry is until you join it and get to see everything yourself.
Yeah, For sure. How does having the visibility and the influence, like from the leadership program, how does that help others who might be considering coming into the industry?
Yeah, I think having me be more visible and letting people know that there are people like me in this industry will definitely help more women, be interested in all. They'll see that, oh, I can join this industry. I won't be totally alone if she's here. Like when I first started at Titan, like I said, there was only one other woman in the building, and so as I went on in the job, I got to meet more women at my company, and some of them were very helpful to me, learning to adjust, helping me make connections because they knew, as a young woman, I kind of stand out. I don't fit in with all the typical people in the industry, so they wanted to help me acclimate and find my place. So that
Mhm.
was awesome.
Yeah, love that. So let's dig into what you do. So you're in R&D. What drives your curiosity and decision making process in that role?
Yeah, so my role is to, test any new materials that we have that we want to potentially use in our ready mix business. And so whenever they, anyone like asks me to test a new material, it's just I, I usually start out not knowing anything about this material, and I want to find out everything I possibly can. I like knowing as much as I can about stuff, and so that kind of helps me in this role. Makes me eager to do more of these tests and get as much information as I possibly can. Yeah.
Yeah. What sparks that kind of natural curiosity? I think that's an awesome trait to have, that kind of instinctual. What sparks that for you?
I think it was just how I was raised. Both my parents are engineers as well. My sister's an engineer, so I was just trained from a young age to ask questions and gather more information.
Yeah. Try to figure out how it works behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How has your leadership style changed and evolved since you began your career, and especially since entering the program?
Yeah. When I first started my career and first started at Titan, I wasn't really comfortable in leadership roles. Um, so when I started, I was put in charge of the lab, and they kept telling, yeah, you're running the lab. Everything that happens there, it goes through you. Um, and so I would often try to do things myself. And when I had to coordinate with other people, sometimes they'd have to prompt me saying, you're in charge, you're planning this, try to get me out of my shell and make more of those decisions.
Mm.
Since joining the VRMCA leadership class, I have learned how to, be more assertive, uh, ask for things more directly, and plan ahead so that I know everything that we might need for a project, and coordinate with people ahead of time, and just make sure that people are listening to me and know that I'm the one making the decisions.
Hmm. So as you've gone through that evolution, how have you seen people respond and react to that, of coming in, more assertively and saying, "Yep, here's the direction, here's where we're going," and trying to get everybody on the, herd those cats in the same direction?
Yeah, they all seem really proud of me for doing that because, they saw me when I first started, and, they were the ones prompting me to, take charge
Yeah.
a bit more, do more. And then, 2 years later, here I am, being very confident in my decisions and telling them what to do. And they're like, oh, I remember when you first started and you were so unsure about everything. It's been really great to, have them see my evolution, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So as you think over the next 5 years, okay, where do you see your career heading, and are there, certain barriers or something that you see? How do you plan to address those?
Yeah, so I really enjoy being in like the R&D side of things. I've gotten to learn a bit about the design of concrete and what goes on in like the day-to-day side of a ready mix business. But I have just always find myself gravitating back towards the R&D side, and the planning for the future of how the industry might change and all that. I think some of the barriers to overcome are just, the industry is changing. People are trying to develop new products to help us with that, but there is still a lot of pushback from, contractors and such who they don't want the industry to change. They want to keep using the materials that they've been using for decades. And, there's a bit of push and pull with that. We're trying to get them to try new things, and they're trying to say, all right, we'll try it so long as it's exactly like what we used to use. So, there's got to be some change with getting them to accept different products.
Yeah. So on the R&D side, how do you go through, like, you're testing stuff out, you see something that works maybe in theory, but it hasn't been out on the job site yet. How do you go about convincing people that it's not just theoretical, that it will work and there's real value there?
Yeah, so usually our process is someone will find like a potential product and they'll send it to me, ask me to run some tests on it. And so I'll run like a basic panel of tests, like to get the strength and see how it like affects like the water demand of the concrete and all. And then if we like those results, then they'll ask me to run every other test I can possibly think of, so we can get like a full picture of it all. And once we like those results, we then start to move on to we call them truck trials. So we'd make like one or two truck size batches of it, and either like find a place to put that, like have a customer accept that sort of concrete. And then we see, how that trial went, see how it looks after being placed, a month later. And then once that we find, we try to, make sure we have a demand for this new product and that we can scale it up enough to supply that demand we might have. And then we start to kind of slowly roll it out, make sure there are no problems along the way, so that we, no one suddenly starts pushing back against this product because they get one result they don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the tension there of trying to, push some new innovative idea while, kind of pulling the industry along to catch up to it that might be resistant to it? How do you kind of resolve and work through that tension?
Yeah. I mean, some of it is a lot of these big name customers, like Amazon, all the people making data centers, stuff like that. These big companies, they want to say they're using like low carbon concrete in their buildings so that they're being more green. And so they're requesting it from their contractors. And even if the contractors may not want it, they sort of have to go along, and that helps us have more ability to design these materials and get them out into the field. But then there are the contractors who don't have that push from the owner of their project. And so we have to, propose to them, hi, we have this material. Do you want to try it? Here's everything we know about it. We think it would work really well for this situation. And, sometimes they'll say no, and we'll have to, try again later. And then sometimes they'll say, okay, we'll give it a shot. And we have to, make sure we get everything right on that, provide any information or materials we might need for that project to make sure we don't, turn them off the idea completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. What trends are popping up that maybe are going under the radar?
Yeah, I think there's a push for a lot more cementitious material in concrete, like calcined clays or reclaimed ash, more use of slag, stuff like that, because those help you, use less cement in the mix, and you can still, get all the strength that you want. There's been a lot of push for more blended cements, so types of cements that use less clinker in them, so that helps reduce the CO2 emissions there as well. There's a lot of people designing different strength enhancing admixtures nowadays. And there's always sort of like a new main ingredient that a bunch of companies are popping up trying to push, like graphene-based admixtures or colloidal silica admixtures. Um, so there's always new things to be testing and new products. If you want to get some sort of low carbon, credits on your project, there's always something you can find.
Yeah. Anything that you're excited to test that you haven't yet?
Um, no, not that I can think of off the top of my head. No.
Just curious. So shifting back to how we started the conversation, is there a particular piece of advice that you would give other women, coming into the construction industry or R&D or leadership programs? What advice would you give them?
I would give advice to just, don't be dissuaded if at first you don't see too many women. You have to just stick out for a little while and find your place. Work on your networking, work on uh, your networking, your finding mentors, stuff like that, and just build your own place and find people to connect with. You just have to give it a little time.
Yeah, good advice. So, in honor of Women in Construction Week, what message do you want to send to women who are passionate about building, design, engineering, or construction, but might not feel like they necessarily belong?
Yeah, I'd want to say, you don't have to be, like a big strong man to be in these industries. There are always more roles that don't involve, physical labor that you will come to love. And then even if you do want physical labor, you don't have to be super strong to fill these roles. I mean, I'm not. I'm strong enough to do my job, and that is it. But I have excelled at what I'm doing. So you don't have to fit the mold to succeed here.
Yeah, I love that line. You don't have to fit the mold to succeed. I think that's awesome. Construction has changed so much, even in the last decade. The
Yeah,
industry has gone through a pretty big fundamental shift, and so what it takes to succeed in the industry is has evolved. And I think our kind of mental perception and mental image of that needs to evolve along with it for sure.
yeah, definitely.
So, a couple rapid fire questions for you. What is the phrase "modeling the future"? What does that mean and look like to you?
I think finding new ways to do what we're already doing because we can't. Nothing can stay the same forever. Finding innovative ways to uh, make progress, make better concrete, make the industry just more efficient, more green, and better for everyone.
What does innovation mean to you?
Um, I guess design, research, and just lots of data and planning is what I think of it
Yeah,
with innovation.
nice. How do people connect with you or find out more information on Titan or the Concrete Leadership Program?
The VRMCA website has more information about the concrete leadership program on there. And then to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn and they can find me there, reach out to me there.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
last question for you, Lauren. If I could give you all construction power, and you could snap your fingers and innovate one thing, what would you pick to innovate?
Like one thing I would like to like redesign or like
Yeah, you
something
can
about the
take it however you want. It's something that you have the all power. You can change anything that you want in the industry.
I mean, right now I want to say I'd like to make it so that scaling and shrinkage aren't problems in the industry because those are the projects I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything specific about scaling and shrinking that really
Just
is like, oh yeah, if we could just change this one thing.
specifically the scaling, it's just the past 2 winters have been so harsh that
Hmm.
that is like prime condition for scaling to occur. And so that's why we're going back trying to, figure out the root cause of it in all of our cement so we can, prevent it from happening in the future, because there have been, complaints from everyone the past 2 years, just due to how cold and how much snow how cold it was and how much snow we were getting.
Yeah. Did you guys just get the foot of snow plus in the last week or so?
The past weekend, no, we just it rained for 2 days straight. And then at the very end of the rainstorm, it started snowing, but since everything was so wet, it didn't stick. But back in January, we got that, foot of snow and then the deep freeze overnight. So everything was just solid blocks of ice and couldn't be moved.
Yeah. It's been crazy on the East Coast. West Coast is getting other, they're not getting that much snow right now, which is it's a weird weather going on here. But
definitely.
Lauren, thanks so much for taking the time and joining the show today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Cool. I'm going to stop there. And now it's time for my Todd takes from this episode. First take: culture shifts through reinforcement. Real culture change in construction does not happen overnight, and it does not happen through slogans. It happens through everyday interactions where competence meets consistency. When people repeatedly show up, deliver results, and challenge assumptions simply by doing the work well, the environment adapts. That is how trust grows and expectations evolve. Second take: innovation is about adoption. You can invent all you want, but meaningful progress in construction is measured by what gets adopted in the field. Testing new materials, gathering data, and validating performance are only half the job. The other half is meeting established teams where they are, proving reliability, and minimizing perceived risk. Innovation in this industry is as much social as it is technical. And finally, the mold has broadened. There used to be a narrow mental picture of who belongs in construction. That picture is expanding because the work itself has become more complex and interdisciplinary. Modern construction needs thinkers with strong analytical skills, scientific curiosity, problem-solving agility, and the ability to translate between technical and operational teams. That shift is practical and necessary to tackle today's challenges. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you are interested in learning more, you can visit our sponsor, Great Tech Group, at greattech.com for more information. You can listen to this podcast anytime by simply going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out our website, bridgingthegappod.com. As always, I'm Todd Wyant, thanking you for joining the conversation to model the future on the Bridging the Gap podcast. Keep innovating.